Yadia is Overwatch's newest support hero, and I've been lucky enough to have early access to her. I'm a contender support player, peaking rank 5 on NA ladder, and I'm covering everything you could possibly want to know about this hero. You won't be a pro just from watching this video, but you'll have every piece of information needed to take you there. First up is primary fire. It's a railgun like Sojourn's, but it charges automatically. Base damage is 25, but if you let it charge all the way, it goes up to 75. Her headshot multiplier is 1.5x, so a headshot does 112, meaning you can 2-tap squishies. You want to charge it to full every single time you shoot, with the exception of finishing off low HP targets. There is one drawback though to her gun, and that's damage fall off. At max range, it only does a third. However, that's still almost enough to kill 200 HP targets with 3 headshots. Here's the range that her damage starts to fall off. It's pretty close, so on maps like Junkertown and Circuit Royal, it's gonna come into play a lot, but on close range maps you won't really notice it. Her secondary fire is a healing beam with a 15-meter range, kind of like Zarya's. It does 120 heals per second, which sounds insane, but it doesn't last very long and it takes a while to recharge. Keep in mind it has an overheat mechanic, kind of like Orisa's primary fire. If you leave just a tiny bit of the bar, it'll charge much faster than completely draining it. Let's talk about healing pylon. It has a 15-meter radius and is undoubtedly the most important part of her kit. Think of it like a sphere with a pylon in the middle, but also keep in mind that it needs to keep LOS with your teammate. It does quite a bit of healing, 40 heals every 0.8 seconds, and it targets the lowest ally inside of the sphere. When you throw it down, it has an 8-second cooldown, and then you can throw it down again. But if it starts taking damage, you can't replace it, and if it breaks, it's going to be on a 12-second cooldown. If you want, you can break it yourself with your interact button, and it won't have a cooldown, provided the 8 seconds from when you initially threw it down have already passed. The placement of this pylon is the most important part of her kit. Without it, you are very easily killable, and your secondary fire is not enough to keep your team up by itself. Number one rule of keeping the pylon alive, throw it somewhere high up. You almost always want to have a wall between it and the other team as well. Think of choke points like Eichenwald. If you throw it up on the ceiling, they have to walk through the choke before they can look up and start shooting it. That will survive much longer than a pylon that's just in the open and able to be shot by them before they walk through the choke. There are really cheeky spots on every map, and you'll figure them out as you go. For example, this one on King's Row, the other team literally didn't break the entire time. It's just no one would be looking there if they were on attack. The pylon itself has 150 HP, and you can even use it as a shield. Okay, next up is her dash, and this is the most confusing part of her kit. It boosts people, and it does 10 damage. Holding the ability down or holding jump gives you extra height, and you can combo this with your directional inputs and go forwards, backwards, sideways, however you want. The extra height part is a little bit confusing, so I'll go into more detail on this. It basically boils down to, if you're holding down either jump or the ability button, you'll get the extra height. If you don't want the height, don't hold either of them, just tap the ability button. If you jump and then hit dash at the peak of your jump, it gives you a little bit of extra height. You also go higher if you're not holding down W, A, S, or D when you hold jump or the ability button. So if you want max height out of this, you want to jump, let go of W, A, S, D, and then hold shift. Her ult is really exciting. It's the first pure DPS ult from a support hero that we have. Pressing it lets you fly around for 4 seconds, and left clicking while you're in ult shoots a big explosion. The projectile is pretty slow, and it can be eaten by things like D.Va's defense matrix. It passes through enemies and shields, and it explodes on objects only. It does 5 damage if it passes through an enemy and 50 when it explodes initially. After it explodes, it sticks a little sun thing on everyone inside the explosion radius. This applies a very strong slowing effect, and dealing 100 damage to someone with the sun on them causes it to explode for another 120 damage. The damage adds up to 100 even if it's healed, and the explosion from proccing it on one person is enough to proc it on someone next to them, leading to a big chain reaction. You can use this ult for yourself a lot of the time because even one headshot or 2 body shots procs it. The sun effect lasts for 7 seconds, and it can be cleansed by Kiriko Suzu, Reaper Wraith, Moira Fade, and Zarya Bubbles.
Let's go!
Okay, let's get to gameplay. First of all, this hero is way too much fun. Her most optimal playstyle is throwing the pylon in a spot that the other team can't see, but your team can still make use of. Usually, this is on the ceiling or behind a corner or around a wall. The more uptime you have on your pylon, the less you have to use secondary fire, meaning you can pump out more DPS. And the gun is ridiculous. It's hit scan, and as long as they're within your 30-meter range, you can 2-tap squishies. If they're super close to you, body shot melee is also enough to kill a squishy. You can kill Tracer ridiculously fast with a headshot, low charge body shot, or a double full charge body shot. Even if they're not in range, the damage is nearly enough to 3-tap people at max fall off, and it's enough to 3-tap Widow because she has 175 HP. That's right, we finally have a way to deal with Widowmaker on support. It's been a long freaking time coming. Against Widow, you just jiggle, take a shot, go back, full charge, and repeat. And this works. I mean, I was playing Pugs against Onsan Sniper, who's an Overwatch League DPS player, and every time he peeked, I would just chunk him and he would have to stand behind cover again to get healing. But let's address the elephant in the room, hitting shots. Don't worry, aiming is a learned skill, and there are strategies that you can use to make it a little bit better. First off, take your time. It takes a while for the thing to charge up, and you don't want to just be like, spam clicking it and missing your shots and having to wait for it to full charge again. I've also found that it helps me a lot to aim with my movement. The idea is that you put your crosshair at head level and you aim with your movement keys. Move using A or D and time your shot to when your crosshair is on their head. This is much more consistent than trying to flick. I've found it the most useful at long ranges because tiny adjustments are easier with my little left hand A and D than my mouse. Another really important thing you can take advantage of is when to stand still. Yes, standing still is bad, it makes you very easy to hit, but if no one's looking at you or shots aren't coming your way, there's nothing wrong with taking a pause, standing still, shooting your shot, and then strafing again. Another thing is waiting for their movement to be predictable. You'll find that in low ranks, a lot of people jump around, and it's actually the easiest to hit someone when they're jumping. Or maybe it's an Ana and they're scoped in so they're not moving around very quickly, or a Widow scoped in, things like that. Like I said before, the pylon is the most important part of your kit. Without your pylon, you are nothing. Make sure that you're putting it in the right spot. If you want to improve on this hero, that is the first thing that you should be looking at. If your pylon is down, not only are you super vulnerable and easily killed, but you're also going to be using right click on your teammates, which means you can't be doing damage. As far as flanking goes, I wouldn't really recommend it. You can definitely do it and get value, but you're very limited by your pylon. You can either leave it with your team, so they get extra heals, or you can take it with you. If you do intend on flanking, you should leave it with your team in a very safe spot, so that if you need it for yourself, you can throw it down again. It's the best of both worlds. But honestly, flanking is kind of troll, and I would only do it if you're like way higher elo than everyone in the lobby and just trying to stomp or have some fun. You'll die. What you should do instead of flanking, if you want to, is take an off angle. That just means you're close enough to your team, but you're not taking the exact same angle as them. You're setting up so that like you can shoot them from the side, or just a little bit away from your team, and something else for the other team to look at and worry about. Her ult is insane, and you can be super selfish with it. It does 100 damage if you direct them with it initially, and if you headshot them, it's another 237 damage from the explosion plus the headshot damage. Yes, it does AoE and it does hit multiple people, but don't be afraid to just solo ult someone with this. It charges relatively fast. I mean, support ultimates always charge fast, except for Lucio's. So if you can guarantee just one kill with this, especially at the start of the fight, it's always worth it. Just keep in mind that things like Diva, Matrix, Sigma Grasp, Kiriko Suzu, Zarya Bubbles, all those things can completely counter your ult, so generally you want them to use those first before you use your ult. Now let's talk about matchups, hero matchups. There's not super specific interactions, and I don't want to cover every single hero, but there are some really important interactions that you should know about. If a Jungle Queen uses Shout and you're pretty close to her, save your shift for when she axes so you can completely dodge the damage. It's the same with Monkey. If he jumps towards you, you should shift to knock him back and keep you away so you don't take the landing damage. Heroes like Ashe, Ana, and Widow are really nice targets because if they're scoped in, they're very easy to headshot. So if you're shooting at something or whatever and then you see an Ana scoped in just standing still, just shoot at her instead. It's way easier and can guarantee kills. Even forcing a nade is huge value. I haven't actually been able to confirm this, but I'm pretty sure you would be able to block High Noon with your healing pylon. It's probably super niche and really hard to pull off, but it'll make a cool clip. If a Genji is diving you, save your shift for after he dashes. If you use your shift before he dashes, he's just gonna dash to where you went after your shift. Then you'll die anyways. Against heroes like Rhine or just immobile tanks that don't have verticality, if you use your dash to get up to a high ground, they just can't touch you anymore. If you see a Widow, she's alone and you can just dive on her, do it, by all means. You have, like, That fight is like an 80% chance for you to win if it's a close range engagement with Widow. Against heroes like Tracer or D.Va who have a lot of damage fall off, if they're diving you, you can throw your pylon really high up on the ceiling. So instead of taking like 1 or 2 clips to break, it'll take them multiple because their damage fall off is so, like their range is so bad. And that's it really. If you're interested, there's a free Torbjorn skin right now for watching 6 hours of Twitch drops, and what a coincidence, I will be live on twitch.tv/Eskay for the next 24 hours after this video comes out. So hop in, get your free Torbjorn skin, hang out, it'll be a good time. Also subscribe, and bye.